Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Okay, Daniel, good to see you this morning.
Happy Tuesday, Dr. Paul.
It's Tuesday already?
Yes, indeed. We survived.
Good.
Yes.
And the world is still going round and round.
Round and round.
So
they say.
People looking, but there are some people still frustrated. They're looking for war. They figure that's part of human nature. It probably is. But I think our goal should be, if you have any common sense, is to have less war. Not figure out how to start one if things are slowing up. Because people have to make profits. They have to have good employees that make a lot of money and keep the whole system going. But anyway, we want to start off by talking about our friend Thomas Massie. And it's interesting. It's very significant. I don't think there's any real danger to Thomas, politically speaking. But the guns are coming for him.
Yeah.
And I know a little bit about that. But he's a target, and the headline on Zero Hedge, pro-Israel PAC, guns for Massie. Did Speaker Johnson encourage the attack? Could that be possible? Could the speaker actually be against Massie? Yes, it is possible, because I lost a lot of confidence over FISA, and what the speaker did there. So that is what's happening, and the Israeli PAC group, they're putting money into it, and they want to teach him a lesson. They know they can't beat him, I think. But they're making a stand. But, Thomas says he hasn't denied, and he would be great if he were in the Senate. But, of course, we like where he is right now. But I think the real fear is that those people who despise non-interventionists and a foreign policy of peace, I can't stand people like this. So that's why they have to start softening up the market, and that's why they're going after him. And he's an enemy of Israel. And I think that is so misplaced and so dishonest, because if you were looking for peace and prosperity, I always argued the case that Israel was made to be weaker because they were totally dependent on us, and they had more enemies because of us. So they're surrounded by enemies, and here they can't even get along with the Palestinians. Oh, it's all the Palestinians' fault. Well, I think big government has a lot to do with that. I put a lot of blame on the United Nations and others who think they can design the world. But right now, the design of the world by the warmongers is we got to go for Massie and ridicule him and show him he's an enemy of the people and he's not for democracy. Oh, that's bad. So they have an organization that is set up to systematically, campaign against them with a bigger goal at the end: destroy the principles of peace and prosperity.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let's put up that first clip now. This is what it's all about. Pro-Israel PAC, guns for Massie. I think we lost our picture here. Guns for Massie. Did Speaker Johnson encourage the attack? And there are two things happening here. One, I don't know, maybe we can put it up now, but the first thing that's happening is that a front group of AIPAC has done a $300,000 ad purchase against Thomas Massie. And as you point out, Thomas, I think their primary is coming up in a few days. He's got a couple challengers. Doesn't look like anything very serious. So they're putting up an ad buy against him to try to weaken him. And the second part of this is whether Speaker Johnson encouraged the ad buy. So those are two things going on. They're trying to hurt him in his race. But, here we go. Here we have it. But is Speaker Johnson actively working against a Republican member of Congress? When you have a razor-thin majority of one and you start attacking your own party, it could be a big problem. Now let's look at the next one. This is what it's all about. This is a front group called United Democracy Project. Who could be opposed to that? Well, it's actually AIPAC in disguise. They announced they're pouring $300,000 into ads on Fox television affiliates in Massie's home state of Kentucky. We're trying to shine the light on the radical anti Israel record of Tom Massie. Of course, it doesn't go by Tom. They don't even know who they're talking about. He says, we want every single voter in the state of Kentucky to know about his anti-Israel actions. But as you suggested in your opener, Dr. Paul, if you put the next one up, it's not really about this year because Massie is in good shape this year. It's very popular. With its statewide attack, AIPAC likely intends to influence the 2026 election as well. McClatchy reports that Massie is considered to be one of 3 favorites for the 2026 Republican nomination to replace retiring Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Now we're going to play the ad, this 30-second ad. And first of all, I just want to say 2 quick, leave that up there if you don't mind, please. 2 things about it, Dr. Paul. First of all, and this is, it's written up in Zero Hedge's article, it says, Israel, the Holy Land, under attack by Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Congressman Tom Massie. And so putting it like this is so outrageous. It's such an absurd attack that actually when you look at the post on Twitter where they talk about it, what they call a ratio, it's the ratio between how many likes you have and how many comments. It's getting absolutely ratioed. 700 comments, all of them critical, versus just 100 likes on it. But let's watch the ad for yourself. And anyone who knows anything about Thomas Massie, look at this ad and tell us if you think this is anything remotely resembling Thomas Massie's positions.
Israel, the Holy Land, under attack by Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Congressman Tom Massie. Republicans are trying to help Israel, but one Republican is standing in the way. It's Kentucky's Tom Massie. 15 times in April, Massie was the only Republican voting with anti-Israel radicals. Massie's votes, helpful for Iran, harmful to Israel. Everyone who cares about the Holy Land needs to know Tom Massie is hostile to Israel.
United Democracy Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
To me, the real irony is, if people were honest and they want to pick out probably the best defender of the Constitution, would be Thomas Massie. Others very close, but for the most part, he is the champion of the Constitution. And just think of the energy and the hate and the involvement and the politicizing of all this is going into this for the sole purpose of destroying, the most student of the Constitution and the most consistent, principled voter there. And I should modify the most because there are others. But the whole thing is, it's such an irony of the energy they spend on this, and then to turn it into a hate speech and a hate ad. But you know what? I think it's sort of, there's a limit to how much garbage you have to listen to, and right now I think that's what Trump is sort of proving. How much garbage can you throw at me before the people say, what are you people doing? Yeah. So I think when they look at an ad like that, I think that would get him more sympathy, and of course since they know they can't beat him in the current election, what they want to do is send a big message to more people down the road, and why that type of voting and support can't be allowed. You can't hide behind the Constitution, common sense, and peace, and you can't reject especially our early history about non-interventionism, and for the many thousands of people, if not millions, who are now joining in this effort to promote peace and prosperity as a basic principle of what government should be all about. But still, they'll spend all this energy and it's trying to get rid of the best. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, using this insane hyperbole, and they use it over and over. All the student protesters love Hamas. They just want to kill every single Jew in Israel. That's the hyperbole they use. And the same hyperbole is Thomas Massie just hates Israel. That's why he votes this way. There couldn't be any other reason. Well, he's been very clear about this, and he's been very consistent. He votes against all foreign aid. Full stop. Doesn't matter. Votes against all foreign aid. And the other one they're attacking him on is the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. And put this next clip up. Yes, he voted against this. He voted against it, as you say, Dr. Paul, for very good reasons. He characterized his very statements. So Massie also tried to defend the First Amendment as one of only 19 representatives voting against the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, still pending in the Senate. It characterizes various statements about Israel as being anti-Semitic, subjecting colleges and universities to civil rights enforcement action if someone says the wrong thing. And here's what Massie says: policing speech, Religion and assembly is not the role of the federal government. In fact, it's expressly prohibited by the U.S. Constitution. That's why he voted against it. It was violating the Congress shall make no law, which is very clear. So to tar him as being a bigot because he stands by the Constitution, really, I think they've taken a bridge too far.
And then the emphasis should be on what is he doing for the American people, the American taxpayer, for the principle of law. And he's the one that stands out, and as a champion of this, he thinks that spending is bad, that to steal from the American people to spend this money. Just think of, there's a lot of money being spent in the Middle East, but what about Ukraine? How many billions of dollars are going there, and if you're not for it, for some reason, you're not for foreign aid, therefore you hate the other people, and they go on, and at the same time, he can easily make the case that if you want to vote for the American people, I mean, this whole idea that forever budgets and deficits will never matter, that sound money will not matter, that the expansion of government, which is on autopilot, will not and does not matter. It's a fiction. And so you stand up and warn people about it, and that's the type of rhetoric you hear from it. They're hateful people that write things like that.
Yeah, they are, absolutely. Well, here's the other part of it, though. This is interesting, too, if you put this up. So it's bad enough that they're attacking him on very spurious, very false charges. He does not hate Israel, does not hate Jewish people at all. But here's the other part, though, that is really intriguing. Massie told the Courier-Journal there is reason to think Speaker Johnson may have encouraged AIPAC to give Massie's primary challengers some indirect help. And here's a quote. This week in our GOP conference meeting, as members groused about blowback from the latest anti-Semitism resolution, Speaker Johnson pledged to call his contacts at Jewish Israel groups if dissident GOP representatives mustered opposition. This and the timing of the ad announcement does raise questions of whether the ads were suggested or sanctioned by Speaker Johnson. And so here, if you can kind of simplify that language, they're having their GOP meeting, and a bunch of members are saying, I am getting a lot of pushback. I voted for this anti-Semitism bill. You told me it was going to be very popular, and I'm getting a ton of pushback in my district. And Johnson's response was, well, if you keep complaining about it, I'm going to be calling AIPAC and have ads taken out against you. And that's what it sounds like from what Massie's saying.
Yeah.
Crazy. This is no way to run a party.
It's really a sad story. And it's the only way the opposition can win is to expand on their hate. Because it's harder to refute, and the hate, spreads, and people will listen to it, and you hear this on the TV. But still, Daniel, there's a lot of people now, as much as we're sending out the warning and we don't like it and think it's horrible, it could get worse, we're still excited about the number of people who are starting to pay a little more attention to this. And I think it's going to be an interesting political year because the way that the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the whole works have operated and the reputation they have, and then soon we were going to have the climactic end of this endless spending. Everybody knows that is coming. Even the people who keep voting for it. I think they know really that it will come. A lot of times I've had people tell me, yeah, well, I know you're right, but we might as well get what we can in the meeting. In the meantime, get our share.
That was Zelensky's talking. That's what
there he goes.
Well, here's one final thing on the Massie thing, and this is, I think, what infuriates a lot of people and a lot of special interests. Now, this is an ad that AIPAC took out on Twitter. It has a nasty picture of Thomas Massie and says, when Israel faced rocket attacks, Thomas Massie voted against the Iron Dome. And they make it sound like he specifically said, no, let's let the Israelis get hit. No, he voted against foreign aid. The AIPAC ad says efforts to add conditions or restrict America's strong bipartisan commitment to Israel will only harm America's national interests. And Thomas Massie retweeted it and said, how is this not foreign interest in our interference in our elections? Which is a very good question, Look what happened to Trump with Russia. There was not even a fraction of this kind of foreign influence.
Well, the other thing is, let's say it was much worse than they say, and there was a great danger. these are all acts of war that they're talking about. Oh no, we're sending them money and the bombs and the tanks, and we give them all the information. So it's acts of war. So if the American people decided, well, this is bad news, and we have to do something, and we have to participate in the war, and we will join, just like the emphasis was in going into World War I and II. We have to do this, but they don't even do that. They don't even consider that necessary. They don't even want to have a debate that even if they had a tenth of what they're saying is true, which isn't possible, that they should. There's a different way of doing it. So they're completely wrong on the technique of how they get this money, and that is to terrorize the supporters of liberty.
Yeah.
And say, look, we're going to kick you out. And I imagine there's been some over the years that finally get tired of all the nonsense.
And I think some of this behavior on their part is actually going to create more anti-Semitism because people will draw the wrong conclusions.
Right.
And this is a perfect example because all Jewish people are not in favor of this warmongering. On the contrary, let's go to our next story.
Yes.
This is a great example. U.S. Army major quits intelligence agency over unqualified U.S. support of Israeli ethnic cleansing. His name is Major Harrison Mann. He sent a letter to the Defense Intelligence Agency protesting Washington's nearly unqualified support for the government of Israel. And he says it facilitates the killing and starvation of thousands of innocent Palestinians. He describes himself as a descendant of European Jews who was raised to be particularly unforgiving where responsibility for ethnic cleansing is concerned. So it's a big deal to have a resignation like this in the Defense Intelligence Agency, and I think it's going to rock the government. And one of the things that Mann said is that I am putting this letter out because I want to let other people who have the same feelings in government know that you're not alone. There are a lot of people like you who are disgusted by what's happening.
And there's a lot of people who agree with him. But the little note I wrote to myself, this is the way it should be done. You should resign and say, I can't live with this anymore. This is bad. This is wrong. And I'm not going to support it. And he got some attention, and that's proper. And I think he has credentials, which is more credible, to people saying, well, he's Jewish, he's doing this, But how many Jews in Israel might have? They have to be pretty quiet, if you take a position there and challenge, challenge the status quo. And it's really, it's subtly the attack on the First Amendment, because here, if Mann is saying something or Massie is saying something, they're saying this is, you're guilty and we're going to destroy you for speaking. So it is attack on freedom of expression.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's skip the next one and go to the one that starts in April. UNICEF said, if we can. I know I'm just skipping around. Just skip one. Here we go. Thanks. So here's more from his letter. Now, he initially posted this letter to his superiors at the Defense Intelligence Agency. It made the rounds within government, and then he posted it on his LinkedIn site and made it public. And here's another excerpt from his letter. The nearly unqualified support for the government of Israel has enabled and empowered the killing and starvation of tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians. The past months have presented us with the most horrific and heartbreaking images imaginable, sometimes playing on the news in our own spaces. And I have been unable to ignore the connection between those images and my duties here. This has caused me incredible shame and guilt. And go to the next one, and here's the part where he talks about his own background and how he feels that's informed his decision. He said, again, this is from his letter, as a descendant of European Jews, I was raised in a particularly unforgiving moral environment when it came to the topic of bearing responsibility for ethnic cleansing. My grandfather refused to ever purchase products manufactured in Germany, where the paramount importance of never again and the inadequacy of just following orders were oft repeated. I am haunted by the knowledge that I have failed those principles, but I also have hope that my grandfather would afford me some grace, that he would still be proud of me for stepping away from this war, however belatedly. Very powerful way of pointing it out. And this is exactly what the other side, the war party, doesn't want to get out. That the opposition to what's happening in Gaza is not a bunch of pro-Hamas students that are woke and with dyed hair. Now, some are that way. But in a very significant proportion, this is a movement by American Jews and Jews worldwide who are opposed with the government of Israel is doing. They don't want that to get out, but it continues to get out. And hats off to Major Man. He's not going to get any big promotions by doing this. You can be sure of that. As you say, this is the way to do it. You resign your office and you make an example that others can follow.
Well, his most positive statement and reflection was, man said that he received an unexpected outpouring of support.
Yeah.
So it's out there.
Within the government, I bet, too.
Yeah.
And there's already several State Department officials have resigned over this. Not enough for a critical mass, but I don't know, you probably remember better than I, but during the Vietnam era, weren't there a lot of government officials who resigned in protest over the escalations, and it finally reaches some sort of a critical mass, and they have to pay attention.
You know, in a way, in a big picture, when you start looking at financing, why do we finance all this thing? It could not be done if we couldn't borrow into the future and couldn't debase the money and pour all the real costs on the middle class. And I'm talking about the monetizing of debt. I mean, if they had to collect money from people and tax people for this kind of money, it would end in a day.
Sure, yeah.
If they say, well, we've changed the way we're going to pay for these wars, and this is your bill, and you can start paying it, and we want it paid monthly.
Yeah.
You know, somebody said once that the withholding tax was a very sinister move. You have inflation and the withholding tax. People get money back from the government. I'm getting money from the government after they stole more than they needed.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, those people out there who want to continue supporting Ukraine, who want to support Israel, they should be free to write a check. Right. And the rest of us should be off the hook. Let Lindsey Graham finance the whole thing. He's probably got a couple dollars in the bank.
Yeah.
You know. Well, let's move on to the final story of the day. They're all kind of related, but this one is interesting on a couple of levels. If you put that next clip up, Representative Corey Mills from Florida, earlier this week, he filed articles of impeachment against Biden. Now, was it for the corruption? Was it for 10% for the big guy? No, it was for threatening to withhold bombs to Israel. He formally filed impeachment against Biden on Friday, due to his recent comments about withholding deliveries of heavy bombs to Israel if it launches a major attack on population centers in Rafah, Gaza's southernmost city. So he's basically saying, if you don't send these weapons over, you're going to get impeached.
Yeah, but change policy.
Yeah.
Threatening to change policy. But you know, it's interesting where this should have stopped. It should have been stopped a long time ago. But who really has the authority to make this decision? Does the Congress? They have power of the purse, and they say, we're going to have money, and you do this, you send the bombs, and you do this. But then again, who's the commander in chief?
Yeah.
You know, so I think that it's an avoidance of the declaration of war for the Congress. That was one of the things when the Mideast wars were going on. They didn't want to have those votes because they didn't want to have their fingers into it, and they wanted just the president to make these decisions. But this way they don't have to have a declaration of war. They just go and pound them. They give them the money. And what if the president doesn't do it? They say, well, if they don't do what we tell them, we're going to impeach them. But, you know, I think a lot more of that should be done, even on social spending, everything, because so much, essentially, not very much of it is constitutional. What if you had a president that wouldn't do, or a secretary of treasury wouldn't borrow the money for it? It would stop, but it would also cause hysteria because people are totally addicted to this deception that goes on with the way we give away money in a welfare state, and we promote it. And the countries that have gotten into trouble over the many years has been the people who have an empire and control the main currency, the reserve currency, because you can deceive and borrow and throw your weight around for a lot longer time. But the one thing that people better start realizing is that just within the time that we've been on it, not that we had anything to do with it, during these last 10 years. I tell you, things are different today than they were 10 years ago because the confidence has been disappearing as far as how we are respected around the world, how we were respected here at home for our legal system. That's getting to be a joke. And our economic system right now is unhinged, more so than many people admit. The one thing for sure, even though the Fed probably knows exactly what they're doing, you never know by what they tell us. Everything is just fine.
Yeah.
Just go to it, spend money, buy some stocks. We'll lower the interest rates if you need.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about Mills' move that is the most boneheaded part of it. Put this next one up so he introduced articles of impeachment because Biden wouldn't send more weapons. So here's from the antiwar.com article. Mills compared his move, i.e. introducing articles of impeachment, with the 2019 impeachment of then President Donald Trump for briefly delaying weapons shipments to Ukraine. And Mills claimed Biden abused his power by trying to leverage military aid to get Israel to change its tactics. So this is how dumb Republicans can be, because what Mills is, I'm sure unintentionally doing, is legitimizing the impeachment of President Trump, by saying, oh yeah, you impeached Trump, well we're going to impeach you for doing the same thing. The whole point is saying the impeachment of Trump of withholding weapons to Ukraine was stupid. It was a dumb thing. You're now saying that it was a smart thing.
It's a reflection of everything is political and nothing has basic principles.
Yeah.
So you do what you need to do.
Yeah, it's all political. It's only about politics.
Total utilitarians, what it is. It looks like it's beneficial today. We'll worry about it tomorrow.
Yeah, terrible. Well, anyway, I think we've probably worked ourselves up enough to turn the cooler down in here. And I was going to thank all of our viewers for watching the program today. Every day we do our best to bring you the Ron Paul spin on what's happening in the world. And another reminder to mark that calendar, Labor Day weekend. Come see us in Dulles. We'll have the tickets on sale, I hope, by the end of the week. I hope by Thursday, which is the end of my week here on the show. But I'll keep you posted. If you are not subscribed to the Ron Paul Institute for free updates, go to ronpaulinstitute.org, hit subscribe for free. We never share your information anytime, anywhere, but we'll keep you posted and we'll keep you updated as we move toward the big RPI conference.
We talked a little bit about when Congress comes along and says, so you spend your money, excuse me, a certain way, and if the president doesn't do it, then, we'll impeach you, we're the boss, you have to do that. And I got to thinking, well, they're escaping the whole thing, the whole process of where they get the money and a declaration of war or whatever. So what they do, what if you had the situation, right now it's building, the hatred toward China, trade wars going on and China is the next enemy we have to deal with. What if somebody comes along, it passes a resolution, we did it in Ukraine, we do it in the Middle East, we give them money, you get the bombs and you have to do it. If you don't do it, we might impeach you and or we'll deny the money for a while. So what if it's China is the enemy and Taiwan's in trouble and then we have a group here. We need to deal with China, really, and there's a lot of that still going on. What we need to do is we're going to send you some bombs over there, and we want you to bomb Beijing. And then there's even congressmen now talking about dropping nuclear weapons. So they go in there and whether you say that would be so insane, but that's essentially what they're doing. But they only want to do what attack the people that they think they can and respond to the pressure. And the biggest motivating factor is money. People make money on this kind of policy. But it would be insane, if we were sending weapons. And of course, we're close to doing that with Russia. Look, we're sending the money over there, and our money's being used to, attack Russia because of our official assessment is that it's all Russia's fault and not NATO. NATO had nothing to do with this mess over there. So it's the only answer to this is to seek the truth of everything possible and understand what's going on, decide whether the Constitution was a decent document and worth looking into, and deciding whether or not you want to live in a free country where maybe the 10 amendments to the Constitution should be defended instead of trampled. It's not that complicated. It's a matter of desire. And I think largesse, which is and the great wealth, is a consequence of freedom. And we did accumulate a lot, and we have a lot of power, and we own our empire. But it's coming to an end. So that's why people better consider exactly what we believe in and how to do it, because we're not going to change it gradually. We're not going to get 10 more Thomas Massies next month and more the following month. It's not going to happen that way. This one is going to fold, and the ideas that many people, and a growing number of people, emphasize when it comes to war and peace and freedom has to have an influence in the rebuilding of the mess that I see coming. And it's not that difficult, and the philosophy is not complicated. Believing is freedom, and as I always said, freedom is popular. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.